Most people believe discipline is something you either have or you do not. They look at successful people waking up early, staying consistent, and achieving difficult goals, and assume those people were simply born stronger. Carl Jung saw something very different. He believed the real obstacle is not a lack of motivation, but a hidden force inside the mind that resists every serious attempt to change. Every time you decide to improve your life, the same pattern appears. You create a plan, imagine a better future, and promise yourself that this time will be different. But when the moment arrives, your confidence disappears, and your mind begins offering excuses that sound reasonable. The disturbing question is this: why does the same mind that created the goal become the first thing trying to destroy it? Carl Jung believed the answer was hidden far beneath conscious thought. According to him, every person carries an unconscious mind that constantly works behind the scenes, shaping decisions without asking for permission. Its primary purpose is not to help you achieve your dreams or become successful. Its only concern is survival. To the unconscious, what is familiar always feels safer than what is unknown, even if that familiar life is making you deeply unhappy. This explains why every meaningful change feels strangely uncomfortable. The moment you decide to wake up earlier, exercise consistently, or build a better future, your unconscious interprets those actions as a threat to the identity it has protected for years. It responds by creating doubt, fear, and hesitation. What feels like laziness is often something much deeper. It is your old identity fighting to survive, because every transformation begins with the death of the person you used to be. This is why motivation can never be trusted as the foundation for discipline. Motivation is an emotion, and emotions constantly change with your circumstances. Some mornings you feel unstoppable, while on others, even the smallest task seems impossible. If your actions depend on how you feel, your future will always be controlled by temporary emotions. Jung believed that real transformation begins only when your actions are no longer controlled by your changing emotional state. Think about how many promises you have made to yourself over the years. Maybe you decided to read every day, exercise regularly, or finally build the life you imagined. In the beginning, excitement made everything feel easy. But as soon as discomfort appeared, the old patterns quietly returned. This cycle repeats because most people try to change their behavior without changing the identity hidden beneath it. And until that identity changes, every new habit feels like pretending to be someone you are not. Discipline becomes easier when you stop asking what you should do and start asking who you are becoming. A person who sees exercise as punishment must force himself to train, but a person who sees himself as disciplined acts differently. The behavior may look identical, yet the internal experience changes completely. Jung understood that lasting transformation begins when a new identity is accepted deeply enough that the old excuses no longer feel convincing. This is why small actions matter more than dramatic promises. Every time you keep a simple commitment, you give your unconscious new evidence about who you are. Waking up on time, finishing one task, or resisting one distraction may seem insignificant, but each act weakens the old identity and strengthens the new one. Discipline is not built in one heroic moment. It is built through repeated proof until your mind can no longer deny the person you are becoming. Carl Jung introduced one of his most powerful ideas through the concept of the shadow. The shadow is the hidden part of your personality containing the fears, impulses, weaknesses, and emotions you refuse to acknowledge. Most people believe ignoring these traits makes them disappear, but Jung argued the opposite. Whatever remains unconscious becomes stronger over time. The more you avoid your inner resistance, the more control it quietly gains over your everyday decisions. This is why discipline often feels like an invisible battle. You are not fighting the world around you. You are confronting the parts of yourself you have ignored for years. Every excuse, every distraction, and every delay becomes a way for the shadow to remain in control without revealing itself. The moment you recognize its presence, however, something remarkable begins to happen. What once controlled you from the darkness slowly loses its power, simply because it has finally been seen. Most people think self-control means constantly fighting temptation, but Jung saw it differently. He believed that every internal conflict is a conversation between different parts of the psyche, each pulling you toward a different direction. One part seeks growth, purpose, and meaning, while another desperately clings to comfort and certainty. The stronger your awareness becomes, the less these unconscious forces can manipulate your choices without your permission. True discipline is not about silencing every negative thought or forcing yourself to feel motivated. It is about recognizing those thoughts without automatically obeying them. The moment you realize that every excuse is simply another voice inside your mind, not your entire identity, you create distance between yourself and your impulses. That small moment of awareness changes everything, because you stop reacting automatically and begin choosing your actions consciously, one decision at a time. The most dangerous moment is not when a difficult task begins, but the few seconds before it. That is when the mind starts negotiating. It offers comfort, delay, and convincing reasons to avoid discomfort. The longer you listen, the stronger the resistance becomes. The solution is not to win a long argument with yourself. It is to remove the argument entirely by deciding in advance what happens when the moment comes. Create one simple rule. When the time arrives, begin before your feelings have a chance to vote. Do not wait for confidence, energy, or inspiration. Start with the smallest possible action and let movement create momentum. Open the book, put on the shoes, write the first sentence. Discipline becomes less painful when the task is no longer a debate. What changes your life is not intensity, but the ability to act before hesitation takes control. There is a reason why truly disciplined people appear calm under pressure. They are not relying on motivation every single day. They have trained their minds to repeat certain actions until those actions become part of their identity. Every repeated behavior strengthens a mental pathway, making the next decision slightly easier than the last. What once demanded enormous effort eventually becomes automatic, not because the task changed, but because the person performing it did. Jung believed that real transformation happens gradually through countless small choices, rather than dramatic breakthroughs. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, no matter how small, you strengthen trust in your own character. That trust becomes the foundation of confidence, and confidence creates consistency. Over time, discipline stops feeling like something you force yourself to do. Instead, it becomes a natural expression of the person you have quietly trained yourself to become. Most people treat discomfort as a warning to stop, but that reaction keeps them trapped in the same patterns. Discomfort often appears precisely when you are moving beyond an old identity. Instead of seeing resistance as proof that something is wrong, learn to recognize it as evidence that change is happening. The difficult feeling is not always an enemy. Sometimes it is the doorway between the person you have been and the person you are trying to become. The next time your mind says, "Not now," pause before obeying it. Notice the tension, the excuses, and the urge to escape. Then take one small action in the direction you chose. This teaches your unconscious a new lesson. Discomfort does not control you. Every time you act while resistance is present, you weaken its authority. Eventually, the feeling may still appear, but it no longer decides what happens next. In the end, discipline is not about becoming colder, tougher, or emotionally numb. It is about becoming free. Every time you act according to your highest values instead of your temporary emotions, you reclaim a small piece of your life. Freedom is not the ability to do whatever you feel like doing. It is the ability to choose what truly matters, even when comfort is pulling you in the opposite direction. Carl Jung believed that the greatest achievement of any human being is not wealth, status, or recognition, but becoming the person they were truly meant to be. That journey begins the moment you stop blaming circumstances and start understanding your own mind. The battle was never against the world around you. It was always within. And once you stop fighting yourself, discipline no longer feels like a prison. It becomes the path that leads you back to who you really are. The next time resistance appears, do not try to defeat it with a long internal speech. Give yourself only 3 seconds to move. Count backward, 3, 2, 1, and begin the smallest action connected to the task. Stand up, open the document, place your phone across the room, or take the first step outside. The goal is not to finish everything. The goal is to interrupt hesitation before it becomes a decision. This works because resistance grows through delay. Every extra second gives the mind more time to produce excuses, fear, and doubt. But immediate movement changes your mental state before those thoughts gain control. Once the body begins, the mind often follows. You do not need to feel ready before acting. Readiness is frequently created by action itself, and that is one of the most powerful secrets disciplined people understand. Every meaningful transformation begins with a single decision repeated over and over again. The person you become tomorrow is shaped by the choices you make today, especially the ones no one else will ever see. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, focus over distraction, or purpose over instant pleasure, you cast another vote for the future version of yourself. Identity is not created by what you believe. It is created by what you repeatedly do. Perhaps the greatest lesson Carl Jung left us is that real change never begins by controlling the outside world. It begins by understanding the hidden forces within. The moment you become conscious of the patterns that once controlled you, they lose the ability to dictate your future without your awareness. That is the true meaning of self-mastery, not becoming someone else, but finally becoming the person you have always had the potential to be. From this moment on, stop asking yourself whether you feel motivated. Instead, ask a much more powerful question. Who am I becoming through the choices I make today? Every decision, no matter how small, is shaping your character. The person you admire is not someone who never feels fear, doubt, or resistance. They simply refuse to let those feelings make their decisions. The moment you stop negotiating with your excuses, you begin building a life that is directed by purpose instead of impulse. Carl Jung once reminded us that until we make the unconscious conscious, it will continue directing our lives while we believe we are choosing freely. Perhaps discipline has never been about forcing yourself to work harder. Perhaps it has always been about waking up to the hidden patterns that quietly steal your attention, your energy, and your future. The battle has never been against the world. It has always been within your own mind. And every time you choose awareness over comfort, you take one more step toward becoming the person you were truly meant to be. If this message resonated with you, remember this: the greatest battle you will ever fight is not against other people, your circumstances, or even your past. It is against the unconscious patterns that quietly shape your decisions every single day. The moment you become aware of them, you begin to reclaim your freedom. And perhaps that is what Carl Jung wanted us to understand all along. The person you are searching for has never been somewhere else. They have always been waiting beneath the fears, habits, and distractions that no longer serve you. If you enjoyed this exploration of Carl Jung's ideas and want to continue discovering the hidden forces that shape the human mind, subscribe to the channel and join us on this journey of self-discovery. There is much more to uncover, and your next breakthrough may begin with the very next video. Until then, remember, the mind can either become your greatest prison or your greatest ally. The choice, as always, is yours.